Celia's fingers brushed against the key, and the moment they did, the ocean itself seemed to hold its breath. The shard of liquid light trembled beneath her touch, its surface rippling as if aware of her presence, as if it had been waiting for her all this time. The guardian roared. The force of its cry sent shockwaves through the temple, shattering the silence, stirring the waters into a churning maelstrom. The ancient walls groaned in protest, dust and fragments of coral drifting free from their resting places, as the entire structure seemed to awaken with the weight of history itself. Celia gritted her teeth, bracing herself against the onslaught of currents crashing against her. The key pulsed, its energy radiating outward, a beacon cutting through the abyssal dark. "Take it," the keeper's voice echoed through the turmoil, its form flickering between shadow and light, struggling to hold its shape. Celia hesitated only a moment longer before she wrapped her fingers around the key and pulled. The ocean shattered. A blinding surge of energy erupted from the pedestal, streaks of silver and gold spiraling outward in a brilliant cascade. The temple walls pulsed with sudden, violent light, the runes upon them igniting one by one, each one carrying a memory of the past, each one breaking free from the chains of time. The guardian howled. Its form convulsed, shifting, splitting apart like a storm losing control of itself. The darkness within it rippled outward, stretching toward Celia, toward the key, toward the light it had spent centuries keeping buried. Celia gasped as the force of it struck her, a cold, consuming presence wrapping around her like the deep itself. Visions flooded her mendigos of a time long forgotten, voices rising in a desperate plea, faces she had never seen before, but somehow recognized. She saw the first city in its final moments. The sky above the ocean blackened, swirling with an unnatural storm, tendrils of shadow reaching down, dragging the city into the depths. The merfolk fought against it, their voices rising in harmony, weaving spells of protection, but it was not enough. The gate of tides loomed before them, its great chains breaking one by one as something on the other side pushed against it, desperate to be free. And then the final seal was cast. A single name spoken, a final sacrifice made, and the city was lost, buried beneath time and tide, its people scattered into echoes and shadows. The vision broke. Celia gasped, clutching the key against her chest, her body trembling from the weight of what she had just seen. The truth pressed against her mind like a rising wave, too vast, too overwhelming to fully grasp. The first city had not merely fallen, it had been hidden, and now she had just undone the last piece of its protection. The guardian lunged. Celia barely had time to react before the keeper surged in front of her, its form expanding, pulsing with a brilliant, shifting light. It clashed against the darkness, the two forces colliding with an impact that sent another shock wave rippling through the temple. "Go," the keeper cried, its voice strained, its very essence unraveling as it fought to contain the guardian's wrath. Celia's heart pounded. She turned, gripping the key tightly, her instincts screaming at her to move. The temple was crumbling, the ancient walls no longer able to hold the power they had been tasked with sealing away. She pushed forward, swimming toward the temple's entrance, dodging falling debris, feeling the water itself pulse and tremble around her. The key burned in her grasp, not with pain, but with purpose, its energy guiding her toward the only path left to take. The ocean outside had changed. The forgotten sea was no longer silent. Ripples stretched outward from the temple, spreading in perfect, endless circles, reaching beyond the abyss, beyond the known waters. The currents had awakened. Something was stirring in the deep. Celia could feel it now, the same presence she had sensed when she first crossed the veil into these unknown waters. A force waiting beyond the threshold of memory, beyond the edge of the world itself, the gate of tides, and she had just found the key to open it. A final blast of energy erupted from behind her as the guardian let out one last furious cry. The keeper's light wavered, then blinked out completely, consumed by the dark. Celia's breath caught in her throat. "Keeper." Silence answered her. The temple's final stones collapsed, vanishing into the abyss below, and the currents pulled at her, pushing her forward, carrying her away from the wreckage, away from the guardian's grasp. She wanted to fight against it, to go back, to search for the keeper in the rubble, but the pull was too strong, too certain. She was no longer in control of where she was going. The ocean had decided for her. The last thing she saw before the current swallowed her completely was the temple fading into the distance, the last remnants of its light flickering away. Then darkness. And when the sea finally released her, she was no longer in the forgotten sea. She was somewhere else entirely. Celia drifted in a current unlike any she had known before. It was not the gentle pull of the tides, nor the rushing force of the open sea. This was something deeper, something ancient, as if the ocean itself was guiding her toward an unseen destination. She could not tell how long she had been carried through the abyss minutes, hours, perhaps even days. The pressure around her remained heavy, but not crushing, the water thick with an energy she could not name. The key pulsed in her grasp, its glow faint but steady, as if whispering that she was still on the right path. Then the darkness thinned. Shapes began to emerge in the distance, towering structures rising from the ocean floor, their forms obscured by layers of sediment and time. They were unlike the ruins of the first city. These were older, untouched by coral or life, as if the sea itself had refused to reclaim them. Celia felt her breath catch. She had not simply drifted to another part of the forgotten sea. She had been brought to the threshold of something far greater. The gate of tides. It loomed before her, massive and unyielding, its surface carved with spirals and symbols that shimmered faintly despite the crushing dark. Unlike the temple's runes, these markings did not glow with an internal light, but pulsed in rhythm with the water itself, as though they were alive, waiting to be spoken to, waiting to be answered. Celia reached out, her fingers grazing the surface of the gate. A sudden rush of energy surged through her, 1,000 voices whispering at once, their words layered upon each other, too many to understand. She clenched her jaw, focusing, trying to grasp even a single phrase amidst the chorus of lost echoes. Then one voice cut through the rest. The seal was made by sacrifice. It can only be broken by the same. Celia's heart pounded. She had not come this far only to be faced with another impossible choice. What kind of sacrifice did the gate demand? The answer came before she could ask. The key in her hand pulsed violently, its glow brightening until it illuminated the entire gate. The symbols flared in response, and for the first time, Celia could could see the truth written within them. It was not a physical sacrifice that was required. It was something greater. A memory. The gate demanded something precious, something irreplaceable, something that bound her to the person she was before she had begun this journey. A piece of herself, given freely, never to be reclaimed. Celia swallowed hard. She thought of numerous of the stories she had spent her life collecting, of the quiet moments in the grand archive, tracing her fingers over old carvings, dreaming of what lay beyond the known sea. She thought of the keeper, of the way it had flickered and faded, its voice calling her name even as the temple collapsed around it. She had already lost so much. What more could she bear to give? But the choice was no longer hers to refuse. The gate pulsed again, and Celia knew that if she hesitated any longer, the current that had brought her here would pull her back, rejecting her, sealing this path forever. She closed her eyes. She let herself reach inward, searching for the memory that would serve as the key, the piece of herself she could offer in return for what had been lost. And she found it. A moment, small and fleeting, but hers. She was a child again, floating just beyond the coral gardens of Lumerus, her fingers trailing through the currents, watching the silver fish dart between the glowing reefs. Her mother's voice called her name, gentle, warm, full of laughter. She turned, smiling, swimming toward the sound, toward the safety of home. It was the first time she had ever felt truly at peace in the ocean. And it was the memory the gate would take from her. A tear slipped free, dissolving into the sea as Celia exhaled, pressing the key into the gate's surface. The water trembled. The seal broke. The gate of tides groaned as its surface split apart, releasing a rush of currents that had been trapped for centuries. The abyss beyond it stirred, the darkness shifting, unraveling, revealing something waiting on the other side. A city, not in ruins, not buried beneath time, but whole. Celia gasped, the sight before her unlike anything she had ever imagined. Towers of pearl and obsidian stretched toward the surface, streets lined with shimmering pathways of mother of pearl, great spires covered in glowing runes that pulsed with life. The first city, but it was not abandoned. Figures moved through the streets, their forms fluid, ethereal, neither fully present nor fully lost. The echoes of those who had been taken, those who had been sealed away when the city was hidden from the world. They turned toward her as one, and at the heart of them stood a figure Celia recognized instantly, though she did not know how. The keeper, but not as she had known it. It was whole, no longer flickering, no longer shifting between light and shadow. It was real, standing at the city's threshold, its eyes meeting hers with something she could not name. Celia's breath caught in her throat. "You found us," the keeper whispered, and then the city woke. The city stirred, the pulse of its long dormant magic rippling through the water. Towers shimmered, their surfaces shedding centuries of sediment as light returned to the runes etched into their walls. Streets, once lost to the abyss, glowed softly, their pathways weaving between buildings that seemed to breathe as though waking from a deep slumber. Celia could barely move, caught between awe and disbelief. The first city, whole and alive, stood before her, untouched by time. The echoes of its people, their forms flickering between reality and memory, watched her with silent reverence. The keeper stepped forward, no longer a shifting specter, but something real, tangible. "You opened the gate," it said, its voice steady, filled with something deeper than gratitude relief. Celia tightened her grip around the key, its warmth fading as if its purpose had been fulfilled. What is this place now? A city or a grave? The keeper's gaze lingered on the figures around them. It is both. These are the ones who were taken, caught between the past and the present. They are waiting. For what? For the sea to remember them. A deep vibration pulsed through the water. The city responded, as though it too had been listening. The streets pulsed brighter, the figures shifting, becoming more defined, their eyes locked onto Celia. She swallowed, her chest tight. How do we do that? The keeper turned toward the city's center, where a vast structure loomed above all others, the grand chamber. Its doors, sealed with more of the ancient runes, remained untouched by the awakening around them. The last memory is inside, the keeper said. The final piece. Celia hesitated, then swam for. The city's inhabitants parted before her, their forms flickering, their faces unreadable. They did not speak, but she could feel their voices pressing against her mind, their longing woven into the currents around her. She reached the grand chamber, her fingers brushing against the sealed doors. The runes did not react as they had before. They remained cold, unyielding. "It won't open," she murmured. "Because it does not need to," the keeper answered. "The memory is not locked behind the door. It is locked within you." Celia turned sharply. "What?" The keeper stepped closer. "You are the last descendant of the ones who sealed this place away. Their blood, their stories, they flow through you. To awaken the city fully, you must remember what they chose to forget." Celia's pulse quickened. She had already given a memory to the gate. What more could she recall? What had been buried so deep that even she did not know it was there? The figures around her waited. She closed her eyes. The ocean faded into silence. Then the whisper of a forgotten time. She saw hands carving runes into stone, voices raised in unison as magic surged through the city. She saw the council, their faces lined with sorrow, standing before the gate of tides, their choice already made. They had sealed the city not to protect themselves, but to protect the sea from what lay beyond. Something had been locked away with them, and it was still here. Celia gasped as her eyes snapped open. The figures around her shifted. They were not simply lost souls waiting for release. They were the keepers of the last great secret, bound to this place by the final act of their own people. The grand chamber shuddered. A crack formed in the sealed doors, a sliver of darkness stretching outward, a force pressing against the barrier, sensing that the time of its imprisonment was nearing its end. Celia stumbled back. What did they lock away? The keeper's face was solemn, a god. The ocean trembled. The city was waking. And so was something else. The moment the god's voice faded, the golden tide surged, rippling outward in endless waves. The first city shimmered, its walls no longer worn by time, but restored to their full brilliance, its towers stretching upward like pillars of light. The streets, once abandoned, now thrummed with an energy Celia could feel in her very core. The ocean itself had changed, the weight of centuries lifting, the currents no longer heavy with forgotten echoes. The past was no longer lost, it had become the present. Celia floated, at the center of it all, the god's presence pressing against her like the tide, vast and knowing. The keeper stood beside her, silent, as if waiting for her to understand what had just occurred. "The city has returned," Celia murmured, her fingers brushing against the current as if to confirm its reality. The god's gaze did not waver. The city was never truly gone, it said. It was only waiting to be seen again. Celia felt a deep pull in her chest, as though something within her had been rewritten, a part of herself forever changed. She thought of Lumeris, of the world beyond this place, of the life she had left behind. Had the ocean changed there as well? Had the currents whispered to others as they had to her? The thought sent a shiver through her, a realization settling over her, like the deep Tidesh was no longer the same person who had set out on this journey. "What happens now?" she asked, turning to the keeper. It regarded her with its endless, shifting eyes. "That is not for us to decide. The city will exist as it always has, as it always will. The ocean remembers, and the ocean forgets. It is balance." The god's presence stirred again, its awareness settling fully upon her. "You have walked the path of those before you. You have unsealed what was meant to be remembered. But your journey does not end here." Celia's pulse quickened. Then where does it end? The god's light pulsed. "That is for you to decide." A sudden shift in the water sent a ripple through her body, the golden currents swirling around her as if pulling her forward. The first city began to blur, not fading, but receding from her vision, as though she were being drawn away by a force beyond her control. "Wait," she gasped, reaching out, but the currents had already decided. The keeper watched her as she was pulled into the tides, its gaze unwavering, the last thing she saw before the golden ocean swallowed her whole. Darkness, silence, then breath. Celia's eyes flew open, salt water rushing past her gills as she shot upward through the ocean, her body weightless, the water around her different familiar. The glow of bioluminescent coral flickered in the distance, the great underwater cliffs of Lumeris rising beneath her, the currents steady and known. She was home. She exhaled sharply, her heart pounding. The first city, the god, the golden tide shed had all been real. But as she glanced down at her hand, the truth struck her like a crashing wave. The key was gone, and in its place, a faint golden glow pulsed beneath her skin, a mark left by the ocean itself. She had not imagined it. She had changed the sea itself. and the ocean had changed her in return. Celia hovered in the familiar currents of Lumeris, her body weightless as she tried to process everything she had seen. The golden glow beneath her skin pulsed faintly, a reminder of the journey she had undertaken, the truths she had uncovered. The first city had awakened, the ocean had remembered, and yet here she was, in the waters she had always known. But they no longer felt the same. The bioluminescing coral still shimmered, the currents still carried their soft lullaby through the cliffs, but something deeper had shifted. The sea felt alive in a way it hadn't before. She could sense it in the pull of the tides, in the whisper of the water around her, as though the ocean itself was watching, waiting. She turned, searching for something that might confirm what had happened wasn't just a dream. Then, from the darkness of the deep, something stirred. A flicker of movement, a shape just beyond the reach of the coral's glow. Celia's heart pounded as she tensed, instinct urging her to flee, but she held her ground. The shape drew closer, moving with slow, deliberate grace, and as it emerged into the light, Celia felt her breath catch. It was a mermaid, but unlike any she had ever seen. Her form shimmered like liquid silver, her eyes reflecting the endless depths of the ocean itself. She did not speak, but Celia could feel her presence pressing against her thoughts, a silent question filling the space between them. "Who are you?" Celia whispered. The silver mermaid tilted her head, studying her for a long moment before finally answering. "You have seen what was forgotten," she said, her voice smooth as the current. "You have carried the ocean's memory back to the world." Celia's grip tightened around her own wrist, her fingers brushing over the golden glow beneath her skin. Then it was real. The mermaid nodded, more real than you can yet understand. A rush of emotion flooded through Celia, relief, awe, fear. If it was real, then what did it mean? Had she truly changed the ocean? "Why am I back?" she asked. "Why did it send me here?" The silver mermaid's gaze darkened slightly. "Because the ocean's memory is not yet whole." Celia stiffened. "What do you mean?" The city was restored, the god awakened. "Yes," the mermaid said, "but the past does not return without consequence." A slow chill spread through Celia's veins. Something else woke up, didn't it? The mermaid drifted closer, her presence both calming and unsettling. When the first city was sealed away, the ocean's balance was shattered. The god's return has mended what was broken, but the sea, is still adjusting, and some things that should have remained buried have begun to stir. Celia swallowed hard. What things? The mermaid glanced toward the depths beyond the coral cliffs, her expression unreadable. There are whispers in the abyss, currents moving where none should flow. Something is shifting beneath the waves, something that has not moved in an age. Celia's pulse quickened. She had thought her journey was over, that she had done what the ocean had called her to do. But now, standing here, she realized the truth. The sea story was far from finished. What must I do? She asked. The silver mermaid reached out, her fingers barely grazing Celia's wrist, and in that moment, Celia felt a surge of energy rush through her. Images flashed through her mind-dark trenches, filled with forgotten ruins, ancient carvings half buried in the sand, symbols that pulsed with a power she did not yet understand. And at the heart of it all, something waiting. Find the source, the mermaid said, and learn what it has remembered. Celia's heart pounded as the silver mermaid's words settled over her like a heavy tide. Find the source, learn what it has remembered. The images burned in her mind, the dark trenches, the ruins swallowed by time, the ancient carvings whispering secrets only the ocean could hear. Something had been forgotten, something deeper than even the first city, and now the sea itself was trying to remember. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Where do I start? The silver mermaid's gaze did not waver. The deep rift, it lies beyond the known waters, past the edge of the maps, where the ocean stretches into silence. It is a place no one returns from, where even the currents fear to travel. A cold shiver ran through Celia. If no one returns, then how do I find it? The mermaid lifted her hand, and the water around them shimmered. A pattern of lights formed in the Carenza constellation of glowing points, shifting like stars against the vast dark. Follow the lantern fish. They gather where the sea is still untouched by time. They know the way. Celia studied the pattern, committing it to memory, and when I reach it, the mermaid's expression darkened. Then you will see what the ocean has hidden from itself. Celia hesitated, glancing back at the familiar cliffs of Lumeris. The waters here were safe, known. A part of her longed to stay, to pretend she had done enough, but she could feel the sea pulling at her, a whisper in the currents, urging her forward. She turned back to the silver mermaid, determination hardening in her chest. "I'll go." The mermaid gave a slow nod. "Then may the tides carry you where you are meant to be." The moment she spoke, the currents around her shifted, and her form shimmered like mist before dissolving entirely into the water, leaving nothing behind but the faintest ripple. Celia exhaled, her grip tightening. The deep rift, a place no one returned from, and yet it called to her. She turned toward the open ocean, her body moving with the water, her senses heightened. The bioluminescent glow of the coral dimmed as she swam beyond the safe waters of Lumeris, the deep expanse stretching endlessly ahead of her. Hours passed, or maybe longer time blurred, as she followed the shifting constellations of the lanternfish, their glowing bodies weaving through the abyss like tiny stars, guiding her into the unknown. The deeper she went, the quieter the sea became. Even the usual hum of distant currents faded, replaced by a stillness that pressed against her skin. Then she saw it, the edge of the world. The deep rift yawned before her, a chasm of absolute blackness, stretching farther than her eyes could follow. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, not merely a trench, but an absence, a void where the ocean itself seemed reluctant to flow. A tremor ran through the water, the pulse of something old, something vast. Celia hovered at the edge, staring down into the abyss, her heart a steady rhythm against the silence. The ocean was remembering, and now so would she. Celia drifted at the precipice of the deep rift, the endless abyss stretching before her like the mouth of a great unseen leviathan. The water was heavier here, thick with an ancient stillness, as if the ocean itself held its breath. The lanternfish that had guided her now hovered in uncertain spirals, their glow flickering in a slow, rhythmic pulse, as though waiting for her to take the next step. A deep hum resonated through the trench, not a sound but a feeling, an echo reverberating through her very bones. Something was awake down there. She exhaled, steeling herself, then kicked forward, descending into the darkness. The light of the surface faded quickly, swallowed by the abyss, until only the faint blue glimmer of the lanternfish remained, their delicate glow forming constellations around her. Time lost meaning as she descended, the currents shifting in strange, unnatural ways, bending around her like unseen hands, guiding her deeper. Then, in the distance, something shimmered. At first, it was no more than a glint in the void, But as she swam closer, its shape grew clearer, a structure, immense and ancient, carved into the very walls of the rift. A gate. It was unlike the gate of tides, its surface not etched with runes, but something older, something alive, its patterns shifting as though responding to her presence. She hesitated just before it, her pulse quickening. The hum in the water grew stronger, the silence pressing down like a weight upon her shoulders. You have come far. The voice was not spoken, it was inside her, woven into the currents themselves, filling every empty space around her. Celia's breath hitched as she turned sharply, scanning the abyss for the speaker. At first, she saw nothing. Then, slowly, a form emerged from the dark. It was enormous, its body shifting between shadow and light, a being of the deep that had never surfaced, never felt the warmth of the sun. Its eyes, vast and endless, reflected the very ocean itself, as though it had watched the tides ebb and flow since the beginning of time. "Who are you?" Celia whispered. "I am the keeper of the rift," the being intoned, its voice thrumming through the water like a distant storm. "I guard what the ocean has long wished to forget." Celia's fingers curled into fists. "Then tell me, what has it forgotten?" The keeper's gaze did not waver. "You already know." The hum in the water deepened, and suddenly the gate behind her pulsed with energy, its shifting surface solidifying for the first time. Celia turned back to it, realization settling over her like a tide returning to shore. This was not just a gate. It was a prison, and something was inside, waiting to be remembered. Celia's breath was slow and steady as she reached out toward the gate, her fingers hovering just above its shifting surface. The hum that pulsed through the water grew stronger, resonating in her bones, whispering to something deep within her memory. The keeper of the rift remained motionless, its vast form barely distinguishable from the darkness around it, but its eyes held the weight of eternity. If it was meant to be forgotten, why does the ocean remember? Celia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because time does not erase, only buries, the keeper replied, and what was once hidden must one day return. The gate pulsed again, the patterns upon it shifting, reshaping into something familiar, something Celia recognized, but could not yet name. A deep tremor rolled through the rift, stirring the water, sending a cascade of sediment drifting upward like ghosts rising from the seabed. Then, without warning, the gate moved. It did not creak or groan like ancient stone, but instead rippled as though the fabric of the ocean itself had been altered. A sliver of darkness appeared in its center, widening, expanding into an open passageway that led into nothingness. Celia's heart pounded. What is inside? A memory left behind, the keeper said, and a choice waiting to be made. The pressure in the water grew heavier, pressing against her like an unseen force, urging her forward. She swallowed hard, then kicked forward, passing through the gate's threshold. The moment she crossed, the water changed. The silence was absolute, deeper than any abyss she had known, a place untouched by time. The currents here did not move. The water was neither warm nor cold, it simply was, an expanse where existence had been suspended. Then, ahead of her, something shifted. A shape, vast and unmoving, rested upon the ocean floor. At first, she thought it was another structure, another ruin of the past. But as she moved closer, her realization crept over her like an unseen current. It was not stone. It was a body, a being unlike anything she had ever seen, its form immense, stretching beyond sight, its presence woven into the very essence of the sea. And yet, it did not stir. It was sleeping, or waiting. The weight of its existence pressed against her mind, overwhelming, a presence too vast to comprehend. Then, from the silence, a voice soft, ancient, a whisper lost between the tides. You have come at last. Celia froze, her breath catching in her throat. The being did not move, but its awareness unfurled through the water, wrapping around her like unseen currents. "Who are you?" she managed to ask. "I am the first memory of the ocean," the voice murmured, "the beginning of all tides." Celia's pulse quickened, the golden glow beneath her skin pulsing in response. "Why were you sealed away?" "Because the sea feared what it once was," the voice said, "and what it could become again." The rift trembled, the water vibrating with something deeper than sound, something older than words. "Now tell me, child of the deep," the voice whispered, "are you here to remember or to forget?" In enjoy the sounds of nature.